she burst onto the scene in Storage Wars, tough, sharp-tongued, and never one to back down. But behind Brandi Passante's reality TV fame was a personal life unraveling in ways fans never saw coming. A disturbing cyber attack, a legal battle with a revenge porn kingpin, a breakup that turned ugly. Brandi was facing more than anyone realized. Then came the panic attacks, therapy sessions, and the weight of raising 2 kids alone. While still in the public eye, her voice changed, her energy dimmed, and for a while, she vanished altogether. So what really happened when the cameras stopped rolling? And how did she fight her way back? Stay tuned to find out. Brandi Passante, the face many remember from Storage Wars, was born in 1980 in Harris County, Texas. Her childhood wasn't exactly picture-perfect. Growing up with a house full of brothers meant constant teasing, roughhousing, and more than a few bumps and bruises. Literally. In fact, she once shared a childhood photo where she had a black eye, joking that it was just part of her early training. Brandi has called her upbringing tumultuous, often feeling like the odd one out in her own family. At times, she even wondered if she'd been adopted. But underneath all that chaos, one thing was clear. She had a sense that she was meant for something more, and she wasn't about to settle for anything less. Her journey with longtime partner Jared Schultz began back in 1999, when both were working at a carpet cleaning company. Schultz liked to joke that Brandi was chasing him, but she was quick to disagree. Their relationship wasn't instant. In fact, Brandi admitted it took time for her to warm up to him. Jared was persistent, though, maybe too persistent at times. A mutual friend even left notes on his truck reminding him to treat Brandi better, since his behavior could be a bit abrasive. Schultz later admitted he didn't have looks to rely on, so he leaned into humor and charm. Eventually, their relationship grew, even though Jared was technically her boss at the time. They never got married, but they did build a family together, raising 2 children, Cameron and Peyton. While they've kept their kids largely out of the spotlight, Brandi has opened up about the serious health challenges both children faced. When Peyton was born, she was deaf and had a cleft, soft palate. At just 6 weeks old, she had ear surgery that miraculously gave her the ability to hear. With speech therapy and time, she made incredible progress, eventually joining the cheerleading squad, a huge boost for her confidence and speech development. Cameron, too, faced his own struggles. During a routine checkup for a urological issue, doctors discovered a mass on his kidney. What followed was a long stretch in the hospital, 3 full months at the Children's Hospital of Orange County, which meant he missed part of high school. After their kids were born, Jared tried his hand in the mortgage business while Brandi stayed home with the children. But stepping away from work left her feeling isolated and deeply unhappy. She loved her kids, but she craved a sense of purpose beyond motherhood. That chance came when the recession hit, and Jared lost his job, and with it, any unemployment support. Out of options, they followed a tip from Jared's aunt, who managed a storage facility, and told them about auctions held for abandoned units. The couple started bidding on lockers, hoping to flip their finds for cash. Before long, they had more stuff than space to put it. Brandi even joked they were one step away from being featured on Hoarders. Things got so out of hand, the city actually threatened them with fines if they didn't clean it up. That pressure pushed them to open a thrift store now and then, which, believe it or not, ended up setting the stage for their big break on television. As their little thrift shop began to thrive, Brandi and Jared were still making the rounds at storage unit auctions, quickly becoming familiar faces in that world. It was during one of those auctions that Jared struck up a conversation with a TV producer who was working on a brand new reality show idea, one that would later become Storage Wars. A few months later, the same producer came back around, this time with a camera crew in tow. They headed to Brandi and Jared's store now and then, just to shoot some test footage. Brandi happened to be working the front that day, and she immediately caught the producer's attention. Jared remembered them asking who she was and whether she'd be open to appearing on camera. That casual encounter turned out to be the beginning of something much bigger than either of them could have expected. The footage filmed at their shop ended up being used for the pilot episode of Storage Wars. At the time, nobody could have predicted the show's success. Brandi later recalled that they were simply asked to be on camera for a few minutes. They had no idea what it would become. But when the show premiered in 2010, it drew in 2 million viewers, and by 2012, those numbers had doubled. What started as a small chance at exposure for their second-hand store ended up launching both Brandi and Jared into full-blown reality TV stardom. Still, the fame came with mixed feelings. Brandi called the sudden spotlight both a blessing and a curse, while Jared admitted they never really set out to become television personalities. The intense schedule of filming, running their store, and raising their children created serious pressure behind the scenes. Brandi opened up about the toll it took on their relationship, admitting that being together 24/7, at work, at home, on set, was exhausting. They had their share of intense arguments, but eventually found a rhythm. Jared, always looking for a silver lining, joked that at least they could use the carpool lane. But fame came with a dark side neither of them saw coming. In a podcast interview, Brandi opened up about how things changed once the show took off. Suddenly, she was receiving disturbing letters from fans. It got so serious that she eventually moved into a gated community just to feel safe. The stress didn't stop there. The anxiety became so overwhelming at times that she turned to therapy just to cope. Balancing all that with motherhood only added to the pressure. With 2 kids, Cameron and Peyton, Brandi was juggling long shoot days and parenting duties. She once described the grind, coming home late, then waking up at 4 a.m. to do it all over again, as nothing short of grueling. At the height of their Storage Wars fame, she and Jared were running 2 stores while raising a family, something she called overwhelming at best. Even Jared admitted Brandi was shouldering most of the parenting while still managing the business side. And as one of the few women in the male-dominated storage auction world, Brandi had to be tough. Growing up with roughhousing brothers helped. She learned quickly that any sign of weakness could be used against her, so she built a thick skin and stood her ground. Over time, she proved she wasn't just part of the cast. She was a force in her own right. But for all the strength she showed, nothing could have prepared her for the digital storm that was still to come. In October 2012, The Hollywood Reporter revealed that Brandi Passante had filed a lawsuit against Hunter Moore, the notorious founder of the revenge porn site isanuanup.com. Moore had uploaded an adult video, falsely claiming it featured Passante. This was years before most people had even heard the word deepfake. Yet Moore was already muddying the waters between what was real and what was fabricated, using deceptive content to target unsuspecting victims. Passante reportedly discovered the video after being flooded with disturbing messages on Twitter, now known as X, from people referencing the footage. Her lawsuit argued the video was not only defamatory, but also embedded with a virus that could harm viewers' devices. She claimed serious emotional, psychological, and reputational damage, both in her personal life and her career. Once the suit went public, the adult entertainment outlet AVN questioned whether Moore had genuinely intended for viewers to believe the woman in the video was Passante. They cited past legal cases involving satire and parody to raise doubt. Meanwhile, attorneys at Milord Law Group weighed in, suggesting Passante had a case for copyright infringement, although Moore might try to shield himself under the protections of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. In her legal filing, Passante sought $2.5 million in damages and even requested a summary judgment, which would bypass a full trial if the evidence favored one side. But Moore's behavior during the process was anything but professional. According to The New Yorker, when served with the lawsuit, he allegedly responded by sending Passante's lawyer a photo of male genitalia. Ultimately, the judge ruled in Passante's favor, but the outcome was bittersweet. Instead of the multi-million-dollar award she pursued, Moore was ordered to pay just $750. Judge James Selner concluded there wasn't sufficient evidence to justify the full amount. However, the court did grant an injunction preventing Moore from distributing the images and videos again. Reports also suggested Moore would likely be responsible for covering Passante's legal fees. Meanwhile, Passante's career was moving in another direction. Riding high from her Storage Wars fame, she and Jared Schultz landed their own A&E spin-off, Brandi and Jared, Married to the Job, in 2014. The show pulled back the curtain on their lives outside the auction world, featuring scenes of parenting, running a business, and planning a wedding after 15 years together. But behind the laughs and light moments were signs of real tension. Wedding planning turned messy fast. Jared barely seemed interested. He even joked about hiring a stand-in groom just to get it over with. During dress shopping, he rubbed Brandi the wrong way by telling her to stick to the sale rack, and she didn't hold back her frustration on camera. The cracks in their relationship were starting to show, and it didn't stop there. Jared thought it'd be fun to teach their kids how to gamble during a game of pool, and Brandi was furious when he floated the idea of putting a bar in the house. In one brutally honest moment, Brandi said, relationships sometimes felt like just suffering through life with someone until the very end. The show was crafted to highlight their playful bickering, and A&E leaned into that chaotic chemistry. Jared even joked that their constant arguments made their dysfunction feel a little more relatable. While some skeptics, including fellow Storage Wars cast member Dave Hester, questioned whether their scenes were scripted, Brandi was clear. None of it was written. In fact, she believed scripting would have made things worse, since neither she nor Jared were trained actors. But even with its behind-the-scenes look and light-hearted sitcom-style vibe, Brandi and Jared, Married to the Job, just didn't click with audiences. After a single season, it was quietly cancelled. So, the couple went back to where it all started. Storage Wars, the show that had made them fan favorites. Then in 2017, they popped up on the Mystery Men show. When the hosts asked about the wildest thing they'd ever found in a storage unit, Jared didn't hesitate. Just days earlier, they'd opened 5 old wooden boxes they'd won at auction. Inside, Ziploc bags packed with a strange white powder. Jared's first thought, white stuff. He turned to Brandi, half joking, half hoping, thinking they'd just struck it rich. But Brandi, always more grounded, noticed something that stopped them in their tracks. A dog tag inside one of the boxes. That's when it all clicked. These weren't substances at all. They were ashes, pet ashes. 5 boxes filled with the cremated remains of dogs. Jared was stunned. How many pets had these people owned? Brandi admitted the find made her feel queasy at first, but then the guilt set in. They both knew what they had to do. They turned the boxes in at the front desk, hoping the rightful owners might one day reclaim their beloved companions. It was a strange and sobering moment, a sharp turn from excitement to empathy. The surprises didn't stop there. Off-screen, the tension between Brandi and Jared was starting to spill into real life. Viewers had long assumed their constant bickering was just part of their on-camera charm. But by the time season 12 rolled around in 2018, they had already split, quietly and away from the spotlight. In 2019, fans began noticing the signs. Brandi and Jared no longer appeared on each other's social media. Brandi was posting more solo shots, some even in bikinis, and her engagement ring was conspicuously absent. Then came reports that Jared had moved on, dating a bartender named Rachel Beckman, who was rumored to work at the Rush Bar and Grill, a bar he had purchased just a few months earlier. Meanwhile, Brandi was seen spending time with other men too, but nothing ever seemed serious. Then came 2020, and like everyone else, Brandi found herself caught in the chaos of the pandemic. As California locked down, she kept things light on Instagram, posting a photo of her pantry prep featuring a giant bottle of Maker's Mark. But beneath the humor, things got real. On June 28th, during a virtual interview with the Dad Diary, she revealed she'd tested positive for COVID-19. She talked openly about her symptoms, losing her sense of taste, constant headaches, and days of heavy congestion. By day 12, she said she was finally starting to feel like herself again, and by mid-July, she was back to posting photos of low-key outings. But the challenges didn't stop there. That October, Brandi shared a heartfelt tribute to her father on Instagram, an old photo of him holding her as a baby. Her words were raw and emotional. She called herself a proud daddy's girl, remembering how he never once raised his voice at her. It was clear the loss cut deep, and just when fans thought they'd seen it all, she dropped the post that truly shook the Storage Wars world. In March 2021, Brandi dropped a promo poster for the new season of Storage Wars on Twitter, and it got people talking. The cast was posed inside a storage locker, but what stood out was the devil emoji she placed right over her ex Jared Schultz's face. That bold move set the tone even before the season aired. In an interview with Distractify, Brandi made it clear she was embracing single life, especially when it came to filming. She sounded energized, saying she was more excited about this season than any before, especially with some of her friends joining the ride. When the 2021 post-pandemic season rolled in, fans were greeted by a familiar cast. Dan and Laura Dotson were back on the auction mic, with regulars like Daryl Sheets, Kenny Crossley, Renee and Casey Nazoda, Ivy Calvin, and yes, even Barry Weiss making a surprise return. But the real shocker, Brandi and Jared were both back, just not together. Right out of the gate in episode 1, Brandi dropped the news that they'd split. Jared quickly confirmed it, adding that while they'd still be showing up at auctions, they'd be doing their own thing from now on. On screen, the tension between Brandi and Jared was hard to miss. When Jared dropped $400 on a unit Brandi thought was pure junk, she didn't hold back, calling him